Paul here from My Perfect Failure, helping you turn your failures into successes and your setbacks into opportunities. How many times would you keep going after being told no? Once, twice, 3 times maybe? Today I'm speaking with the remarkable Dr Afiniki Akanet, whose path to becoming a UK-based GP is anything but smooth, but endlessly inspiring. Dr Akanet takes us through her early life in Nigeria, her determination to study medicine in the UK, and the crushing moment she had to return home when her funds ran out. Instead of giving up, she got to work writing a book, starting a charity, and eventually qualifying as a doctor in the UK in 2019. We discussed mental health, faith, time management, and her philosophy: never let one problem cause another. If you need a boost of purpose, perseverance, and perspective, this episode is for you. So tune in wherever you get your podcast.
Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates, and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today I'm super excited because I have another amazing guest for you. So my guest today is a general practitioner, inspirational speaker, writer, and entrepreneur based in Warwickshire in the United Kingdom with her husband and 2 children. She's also the founder of FORTE Charity for Inspiration and the host of the brilliant podcast, Happiness Over Stress. She is the author of several thought-provoking books, including Fortitude, Life Without Copy, Money and Mental Wellbeing, and Power and Praise. Through her work, she shares powerful insights on mental health, faith, and finding joy in life challenges. So a very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Dr. Afiniki Akanet. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Paul.
It's been in the making, isn't it? It's been in the making for a while. I know that we've met before. We've actually met in person.
Yes, we have.
Which is amazing. I actually don't, because this podcast is very much an audio platform. I've not met many people that I've actually interviewed. So which I would love to meet more people. But we've met in person, which is fabulous.
Yes.
Okay. So Nikki, you've got a remarkable story. So I just reeled off a bunch of things that you do at the moment. So you're a general practitioner, entrepreneur, charity. You've got you're the author of numerous books, and you're a podcast host. So there's any number of different things that you do. But what I want to do initially is to give people a snapshot of you and how the amazing lady that we see today. There was a significant journey for you to get to where you are today. So maybe you might want to take us back to maybe Nigeria, and then how you overcame all the challenges to become the lady you are today.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I think that is a huge challenge to try and summarize it all in a few minutes.
I think a shrink wrap version, if you can.
I'll try. So yes, I was born in Nigeria, in the northern part of Nigeria, specifically Kaduna State, which is not as popular in the UK, because a lot of people you meet in the UK come from down south, Lagos, and probably the capital, which is Abuja, but I'm from Kaduna State. So my tribe that I come from is a minority tribe, as they call them. So even growing up, it was a challenge trying to fit into places and do things when nobody even knows where you're from, nobody even knows the kind of challenges your people are used to facing. And then, my parents sent me to an amazing private school where I was the only one from my tribe, from my place for a long time. And interestingly, my surname means different person. So I always found that encouraging, because then I didn't ever feel the need to fit in. I just thought, it's fine, I'm different, it's okay. I did really well in that school, finished really early, because in Nigeria you go based on your academic performance rather than your age. So I finished high school just as I turned 15, and then went on to go to university for 1 semester in Nigeria, because my father wanted me to experience it before coming to the UK. I really wanted to come and study in the UK, even though I knew it would be difficult for my parents to afford. They supported me. It was just a complete journey of faith. I came here to do A levels, and during that time, of course, money ran out. I had to take a year out, went to go and work for a bit, came back and finished A levels, went to university, didn't get to get onto a medical course, which was the dream, because I was one of those children that knew from age 5 what I wanted to become. I wanted to become a doctor, and came to the UK. Just wasn't happening. I didn't have all the work experience that was expected to make me stand out in my medical school applications. So I ended up, based on advice from someone on the admissions team, going on to study anatomy, which I did for 3 years. It was, a financial challenge, especially considering that wasn't even the goal. Did that with my parents' support, thankfully. Finished that, got into medical school in Warwick. But then after the first year, we didn't have enough money to carry on. It was just so difficult. I had to take a year out, go back to Nigeria. And in that year, it was just full of tears, because when you don't have money to pay your university fees, it means you can't renew your visa. I'd been in the UK for 7 years. I just felt like I was going back home with nothing to show. I came to become a doctor. I've got a BSc, but it wasn't even what I wanted to do. Went back to Nigeria, applied for another visa to try and get back to continue studying medicine when we got some money to carry on paying the fees, but then got rejected 3 times. So talking about the title of this podcast, My Perfect Failure, it just felt like a proper mess up. Like, why did I even start this? I could have just gone to the university in Nigeria like everyone else. I could have just done whatever course was available. By the way, in Nigeria, I didn't get into medicine. I was offered chemistry because there was a lot of politics and corruption going on. Only certain people got onto certain courses. So my chance of becoming a doctor in Nigeria would have been very difficult, would have been very slim. So, and I didn't want to study chemistry. So I did that for the 1 semester. I came to England and was still determined to pursue medicine. Did the anatomy degree, got a 2-1, went on to do medicine. My friends on the medical course were so devastated when I had to leave, saying I got one of the best results. I deserved more than anyone to be on the course, but I couldn't. Went back to Nigeria. After about 10 months, finally got the visa approved after 3 rejections. But in that time, I chose not to let the time be a waste. Yes, there were nights where I was just crying. There were power cuts. There were challenges because of things I wasn't used to anymore after having lived in the UK for 7 years from the age of 16. But I just thought, you know what, let's make the best of this. So I used the opportunity to write my first book, which is called Fortitude, which just talked about my first 7 years in the UK. And I was quite pleased with what impact that book had. It was incorporated into some schools' syllabus for the students to read. It ended up leading to me starting the charity FORTE Charity for Inspiration, to encourage young people to think about their opportunities and to make the best of the opportunities and contribute to society with their skills and talents. So we started out with trying to raise money to provide books in schools and stock up libraries, provide furniture in places that were struggling. And then eventually now, because of security issues, we're not able to travel back to Nigeria every year like we used to. So now it mostly provides grants for students who would otherwise have had to drop out of university because of lack of funds, basically from what happened to me. So I left university after the first year. By the time I came back after 10 months, I was forced to restart the course because I had been away for too long, which was quite a big deal considering all my mates were now going on to 3rd year and I was having to start again in 1st year. So it was painful. My dad asked if I really wanted to do that, considering I was getting older. People were moving on with their lives. But I said to him, I really want to become a doctor. I will start again. Started all over again. And thankfully qualified in 2012. There were no hitches. I got married in the middle of medical school, which was not the dream. I wanted to finish medical school and get married like every good girl, finish your course first. But I already had a first degree, so it was fine. My parents agreed for me to get married in the second phase of medical school, which is basically placements. So it felt like I was working, but just not being paid. And my husband was just completely supportive throughout. He was my boyfriend as a student. Got married, continued my training, because of course medicine doesn't just finish, learning doesn't finish when you finish medical school. Sort of starts really, because then you do your foundation years of training, and then I chose to become a GP. And choosing to become a GP for me was something I'm so grateful for today because of that year out that I took. So even though it felt like a disaster when I had to go back to Nigeria, that year really helped me to discover myself. Like I said, I wrote my first book. I started the charity. I also started a business while I was there, which was designing clothes, taking it to the local dressmakers and things. They would do the clothes for me, and I would get my aunties and uncles that worked in banks to help me sell them for profit. So that was kind of what I was doing to keep myself busy. And then in doing all that, I realized I quite like variety. I like doing a lot of different things. So becoming a surgeon wasn't going to fit in with that, because that was the original plan. I wanted to become a doctor and specialize in surgery. And then after some rotations in surgery, I realized it really wasn't me. It didn't suit my personality. So general practice was just perfect for my personality, because I did some rotations, got on well with the doctors, realized they were living the kind of life I wanted to live, and being able to do other things as well. So yeah, got onto the general practice vocational training scheme in Coventry and Warwickshire, trained here part-time while having children. So I ended up having my 2 children as a trainee. And that was an intentional decision, really, because I didn't want to leave it too long. As women, we have lots of things to consider, I think, trying to be a career-led woman and have family. So I think even in all that, I had to keep reminding myself of perspective. So even though sometimes it felt like things were slow, sometimes it felt like I wasn't achieving where I was or being where I wanted to be at the time I wanted to be, I had to keep a correct perspective of the fact that looking at the bigger picture, I had achieved a lot. I was married with 2 children, training to become a GP, finally qualified as a GP in 2019, just before the pandemic hit. And that was such a blessing to have been a qualified GP, because then I was able to work from home some days, remote consultations, and being able to homeschool my children through the pandemic. And yeah, the pandemic, even though it was a horrible time for a lot of people, I think in all those challenges, I was able to find some opportunities that have helped me to build my career, because I've ended up developing a special interest in mental health because of all the experience I've had as a doctor in mental health and psychiatry. So now I do mental health work as well as working as a GP. I recently left a GP partnership position because it wasn't fitting well anymore with my family life and my other interests. And really, the NHS is struggling, but I think we need to be we need to be tackling it from lots of different perspectives. Some people are having to leave the country to find more satisfying work. Some people are jobless, even as doctors, with the current state of the NHS. But I think that in every situation, we can find ways to choose happiness over stress, which is what my podcast is about.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your podcast, by the way.
That's based on one of my books. So yeah, I've ended up writing a book this year called When You Love and Hate Your Job, just about career transitioning and all the kind of things we need to think about and reflect on, because there are some things that are outside of our control, such as the economy, the state of the NHS. You know, if you're working in public sector, teachers, police people have things to complain about, but there's always something to be grateful for. And we also have a role to play in trying to take more responsibility for our own happiness. So instead of complaining all the time about things not working out, what can I do about it? Yes, it's been a steep learning curve because I didn't train in psychiatry, but it's been a special interest that I've had to use some of my own unpaid time to build and to gain experience and gain extra qualifications to be able to do what I do. So now I enjoy being able to work as a mental health doctor, also as a GP, also working as a lecturer. I am an assistant professor at a local university teaching as well. And that's been fantastic for my love of variety in my working week. And more importantly, it allows me to have time to see my family. So I'm able to pick up my children from school at the end of the day, and I'm able to work flexibly. And that's what I really wanted. So I think even though it was failure in some aspects, in that things didn't happen in the time frames that I wanted, and sometimes things just looked a complete mess. You couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think everything worked out well at the end. And I have to say my faith is a big part of it, because without my faith in God, I don't know how I would have coped. And I think all that has made me a stronger, more resilient person.
And to me, it wasn't a failure by any means. I think it was just obstacles and that were just consistently thrown at you. I was just thinking about your ability to, it almost feels to me that from a young lady, from a young girl, that you you had a knowing about what you wanted to do, and whatever obstacle, it's almost like an Indiana Jones movie that all these obstacles are thrown at you, but you have a fixed goal, and I'm going to dodge that, or I'm going to work out how I can, fix this puzzle and go on to achieve wonderful things. So do you ever reflect and think about the obstacles that you encountered, particularly when you came to England and then you had to go back to Nigeria, and what you learnt about yourself and that resilience? That I think the resilience was always there, but clearly, I think it probably grew and became stronger and became more fundamental. Do you ever reflect and think about how pivotal and how important that period was for you, although it was an incredibly challenging period?
Yeah, I think it definitely has helped me to become who I am. Yes, you say resilience was always there. Um, yeah, I believe everybody has different personalities, because I see people all the time that, would not be able to function when there's anything going wrong in their lives. But I know I've recognized that in myself now. I'm grateful for it, that even when there's a challenge, I'm still able to think about other aspects of my life and keep functioning in other areas. And I think that's something that's developed over time, because when you literally have no choice, my favorite saying these days that I say to my family is, don't let one problem lead to another problem. So just because things aren't
Yeah,
working
that's
in one area doesn't mean you should everything else, collapse. So just because I haven't got money for fees doesn't mean I should then let my mental health go down and then my parents start looking for money for a psychiatrist as well. So don't let one problem lead to another problem. And if it is that the problem right now is you don't have money for rent, but you've got two hands and two legs that work, why don't you start working on that business idea that you've been thinking about, instead of letting it cripple your mind completely that you can't do anything else? If the problem is that you didn't get the job, the dream job you wanted, why don't you use this time to go and shadow or volunteer somewhere else to build experience, build up your CV, so that next time an opportunity comes, you're in a better position. So I think, reflecting back, I always think that the principle of not letting one problem lead to another problem has really helped me a lot. But then I have to say that I've been very fortunate with having a very good support system in my life. My parents have always been supportive. My husband is supportive. And having faith really helps me. My book, Power and Praise, is about that. I can pray about problems. I can praise through a situation. I don't feel like I have to just sit in bed all day because something is going wrong. Yes, it's painful. Sometimes it's singing through the tears and praying through the tears. But I feel that all this has helped me become stronger in the things that help my mental health. And now I have very little tolerance for things that are not good for my mental health. If there's no structure, if there's a toxic environment, if there's any kind of thing that I think, this is not good for my mental health, I have very low tolerance for it. I will, move heaven and earth to change things, because I know how important it is to maintain your mental health. And once you've got your mental health, there's nothing you can't achieve. But if you let the problems then cripple you mentally, it's a bit difficult to come back from that.
Okay, so just in relation to that, so I know that mental health has become more and more of a challenge. I was talking to a friend of mine who works in the medical or works in the NHS, and they were telling me that since the pandemic, they're on a general side. They were telling me that since the pandemic, they're getting more and more instances of patients coming to the hospital, not for traditional injuries or traditional medical challenges. There's a lot of mental issues why they're seeing more patients. So they're becoming overwhelmed. They're busy anyway, you know that a lot better than me, but they're seeing a lot of the mental challenges. So so just a question around that. So if there's people watching this now and maybe they're not adept at understanding how to understand where there might be there might be a sort of a mental issue, and I just don't know how to prevent it, or maybe to recognize it. Do you have any advice for them?
I think, first of all, understanding that mental health is about being well in yourself to be able to contribute to society, to be able to learn well, to work well, to be able to cope with the normal stresses of life. It's the WHO definition of mental health, which is what I really like. And if anything is affecting my ability to function in that way, it's not just about being happy, because sometimes people just go, oh, this is affecting my mental health because they're not happy about something. Yes, part of it is being happy in what we do, but sometimes our mental health is about us being able to cope with the normal stresses of life. Life can be stressful. It is normal for things to happen, obstacles to be in our way, but being able to cope with it is what shows that we're healthy. And if I'm having little things happen in a day, a little bit of traffic, and I'm losing my mind, or my child spills something and I'm screaming, I have to take a step back and just think, okay, is everything okay with me? And recognizing the little signs of this is not quite right. And like you say, having a fixed goal of what kind of life do I actually want? Because if we don't know where we're going, how will we know when we've arrived? And how will we know if we're still on the right path? So if I know the exact kind of life I want, if anything's not fitting quite rightly with it, whether it's my job, whether it's the way my marriage is going, whether it's the way my children are behaving, I have to take some steps to fix it. Life doesn't just happen. Some of the things we're experiencing today are consequences of choices we made yesterday. And if it is that I've done something to contribute to this, yes, we didn't have money for my fees. You could interpret it as we should have saved all the money before starting on the journey of going to school abroad. It could be a case of, situation changed, exchange rates changed, because for some international students, they came here with a full budget of school fees, but then interest and exchange rates changed for the naira to the pound, which meant that their parents didn't have enough money to pay their fees anymore. So sometimes things can happen that's not our fault, but we have to step back and think, what is it I can do about the situation? If there are things I can do, then let me start doing it. If it's that I came to study thinking my parents would pay for everything and I didn't have to work, and now I suddenly realize, oh, there's not enough money, I need to work, then I just need to roll up my sleeves and get on with it. Not because I want to work, not because I'm giving up, but because I'm realizing if I don't do what needs to be done, it will affect my mental health even worse. And having an internal locus of control, feeling like I can do something about this, that really helps our mental health. But then when we just relax and think, well, that's just the way life is, that's just happened to me, oh, it's me, victim mentality, that's not good for our mental health. But I have to say, a lot of times it's because people feel that there's nothing I can do about it. It's other people's responsibility, but I have to be able to take responsibility for my own life. And yes, we all need help from time to time. That's why we encourage people to go see the doctor. We encourage people to go and do different go to do psychotherapy, ask family, friends for help, but if there are things that we need to be doing that we're not doing, then it's going to be really difficult to see improvement in areas that are really bothering us.
Yeah, totally. And I definitely empathize with what you said around sometimes we feel helpless and we feel that we don't have control. There's nothing we can do. And that's kind of like a mindset. So I guess it's listening to your podcast. I think it's a perfect one to listen to because it's condensed. And then you've got all these the way that you're able to very authentically give us an overview or give us insights into things that we can do, just have a better appreciation of life. But I think fundamentally, it's people recognizing that they do have some control. There are things that we can do to mitigate the challenges that life, as long as we're alive, we're always going to experience challenges. That's one thing that's consistently going to happen. And it's having the skill set to actually overcome them. I think your book, Power and Praise, is perfect for people that maybe they want to upskill themselves and really maybe look at some stories and some ideas that can really help them overcome challenges that that maybe they're experiencing now, maybe they've experienced in the past, but certainly challenges will come up in the future.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of time. So just in relation to, I think we definitely have to have another conversation because this is quite a condensed one, but just in relation to where's the best place for people to contact you or maybe just to access your podcast or your books?
Best thing would be my website, afiniki.uk, which is basically my first name, my full first name. Everyone calls me Nikki, but afiniki.co.uk, as pronounced the spelled, or just putting my name into Google, the website does come up. I'm also on Spotify. If you just type in happiness over stress, that will come up. Typing in the titles of the books also brings them up there on Amazon and wherever books are sold. So yeah, it'll be good to hear from people if they get a chance to read the books or listen to the podcast, because I do appreciate feedback, because I'm always trying to improve as well, because I'm still a work in progress.
Yeah, amazing. I think I've got one question, if I may. So how do you manage to fit everything in? Because you do so many different things. Are you very disciplined with your time? And are you very organized as well?
I like to think that I am organized, but then some people might tell you I'm always running late for stuff. So it's a bit of a juggling act every day, but I do enjoy the juggling. It's absolutely what gives me the excitement of living. I get bored when there's nothing going on. My book, Life Without Coffee, Choosing Happiness Over Stress, actually completely answers that question, because a lot of people ask me about this, and they've said, you don't even drink coffee. How do you do all these things? Where do you get the hours? But yes, you're right. It's about time management. It's about having focus. It's about having goals. It's about being disciplined. So when you have not just kind of letting every tiny excuse drift you away from your plans, to just be focused and trying, because the days make up the months and the years. So if we're slack with our days, with our hours, we're slack with our weeks, before we know it, it'll be the end of the year and we haven't achieved everything. So I'm quite focused on using my time wisely, whatever time I've got. Yeah.
Okay, you're very inspirational. Every time I speak to you, there's a book coming out, there's a new podcast episode, there's a career pivot, there's always something going on. I'm thinking, what am I doing? I need to get a move on. Okay. We definitely have to have another conversation, because this is condensed. But final question I have for you today is, so if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, a liable past, who might you invite?
I was thinking recently, I've been really reflecting on, the challenges that mothers faced in the older days, when they didn't have all these washing machines, dishwasher and everything. Because I feel like we still complain about not having time. They used to have to do things by hand, and they still managed to raise children and have a life. So I think, based on where I am right now, I would want to invite my grandparents, if they're both passed on, both sides, both sets. I would want to invite them around for dinner. So those would be my 2. And then the living person that I still want to meet would be Michelle Obama. So I think I would want to invite the Obamas for a meal, because it'd be lovely to hear their experiences so far. She's done a lot of career changes as well, and she's got some really good advice. And I always see her as the other Mrs. O, because my married name starts with O.
Okay. I think you and Michelle would have an amazing conversation. I think she would be incredibly inspired by you. Hopefully she might get to listen to this podcast, you never know. But I think she'd be very inspired by you, your journey, but also what you're going to do in the future, because you're a trailblazer. So you do so many different things. So even in 1 year's time, you would have done a bunch of things. And so thank you for your time today. I'll let you go. I know you've got a busy day ahead of you. And let's stay in touch, and let's do this again, where we can maybe talk about different things, maybe about the mental health stuff you're doing at the moment. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you so much, Paul.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of My Perfect Failure. We're always looking to grow the YouTube channel. So if you're watching on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button, and your feedback is most welcome. So we're keen to hear about the things you like and equally things you don't like. You can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the feedback page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.